Hello, welcome to the podcast. Today is one of those much anticipated episodes where I bring experts on various things onto the podcast to talk about those things that they're expert in. And the thing that we're going to be talking about today is scaling your business. There's a lot to unpack there. And I've invited Madeleine McRae, the CEO of the Legacy Leadership Institute, on with me today. Madeleine, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, Rich.
It's my pleasure. This is a good topic because, look, there's been a lot of hype and talk over the last, I want to say about 5 years. There's been a lot of acquisitions. Private equities come heavily into this space. And I think a lot of people are interested in having a sellable business, whether that's private equity or to a private seller, buyer, I guess would be the case. But the idea of how do you actually grow your business? I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, I just get more sales and naturally we're going to grow. And now we're small, then we'll be medium, and then later we'll be large. And I'm going to go out on a limb here based on personal experience, but I'm going to guess that you're going to say, yeah, it's not quite that easy.
That's right. That's right. That sounds really easy. And I always think like if it's really easy, then everyone would be doing it, right? And you really have to think about the number of businesses in the United States that hit the seven-figure mark. So 1 million is only 8% of businesses hit 1 million. 5% of businesses hit 2 million, and 1% is actually less than 1% hit 10 million or more. So if it were easy, everyone would be doing it. So it's not as easy or as simple as it seems, or as some of those big fancy gurus make it sound. And I think that does a grave disservice to the small business owners who really want to make this journey because they are expecting it to go much more smoothly than it usually does.
Yeah. So did you say 7% hit a million? Was that right?
8%.
8%. Okay.
8%.
Sorry.
Only eight. That's
Only
it.
eight. So, in my experience in this industry, this is what I've noticed. If somebody starts a business, they usually come from the background of either sales and marketing. Check that. Not even marketing, sales usually. They're really good at sales or good at the production side of things. They start a company, and this is my observation. So, this is going to go a little bit against these numbers, but these numbers 8%, a million, 5%, 2 million. I mean, that's across all kinds of different
That's
businesses.
right. That's
In this
everything.
industry,
Yep.
I've seen that somebody can take a business to about $3 or $4 million by sheer tenacity, to use an interesting word, of personality and grit and perseverance. And you can scale a business in this industry to $3 or $4 million. To get to $5 million requires some pretty significant investment in putting systems in place,
Yep.
and then the business can grow to 5, 6, 7 million. But then to get to the 8 to 10 million, not only do you have to have the grit and perseverance and also the systems, but then also to your company's point, I think the leadership in place to really grow it to that level. Would you agree with that? Is that your
Yeah.
observation?
I would agree. I would say it really depends on your average ticket price, right? If you're selling something for 25 bucks a pop, yeah, it's going to take you a huge eternity of time to hit $1 million. And we have to remember that when we're looking at all businesses, you're talking about all of those businesses, even the
Yep.
tchotchke shops, right? So if you're selling something at, $15,000 to $25,000 per sale,
Yep.
then you're going to make that climb much more quickly,
Which
right?
is
So
what we see in this industry.
exactly right.
So, okay, so 4 million,
Yep.
5 million. So let's talk about some of these things. And I know in talking to you previously, some of the things you like to talk about have to do with the organizational structure. So I want to dig into that a little bit.
Yes.
And also this leadership capacity, I think is a massive thing. So let's start with organizational structures.
Yeah.
What does my audience need to know about scaling their business as it relates to organizational structure?
Yep. So most businesses or business owners are semi-comfortable hiring team level people, hiring people to get in there and do the work, do the part either they're ill-equipped to do, they're not good at, or that they know needs to expand in their business, bringing in more sales reps, bringing in crew members, bringing sometimes in administrative support. Then there comes the next layer up, which is management, right? Some level of management. And some business owners are comfortable starting to bring in management. But where the rub really starts to happen and where exponential growth is available is when you really start to think about executive leadership. Most small businesses, and I'm going to include those, $4 or $5 million businesses in the small range,
Yep.
they really think that executive leadership is really only something for their big manufacturers and OEMs that they buy from. But executive leadership is for your business, right? First and foremost, you, my friend, as the owner of the business, even if you said owner and not CEO, you are the executive leader of your business. But if there's only one of you, then your leadership capacity, so organizational structures and leadership capacity are directly linked, is profoundly limited, right? Bringing in executive leadership into the organization sooner than you think you should is actually one of those game-changing moves that you can make to accelerate your growth really quickly.
Okay, so I want you to let's get definitions here because we're
Yep.
using words that get thrown around a lot and they kind of lose meaning as a result. So when you
Mm-hmm.
say executive level leadership,
Yep.
again, I know people understand English and they know what that word means, but in your,
Yep.
what do you
Jargon.
mean? What is an executive level leader versus just a manager or some other kind of leader?
Right. So executive leader is going to be your C-suite. So chief revenue officer. That's the person for whom all the sales and marketing people report up to. Chief operating officer. That's going to be the equivalent in a lot of companies of a GM, general manager, or of your operations manager. You have your CFO, chief financial officer. That's all the money and the data too. Usually HR reports up to them as well. And then last but certainly not least, your CEO, chief executive officer, who is in charge of the vision, the direction, and the growth of the organization, the macro level. So you might have in your business maybe a GM, but a GM could be enough if you didn't intend to grow. But if you want to really elevate that person, they're going to need to have a little bit more authority in your organization. And titles matter because you end up having a fiduciary responsibility, financial responsibility to the business. You have to do what's in the best interest of the business. So we find that when business owners are able to elevate the caliber of the person that they're going after, so the quality, the experience, the depth of knowledge that those individuals have. And even when they themselves, the owner themselves can wrap their mind around, oh my gosh, I'm bringing in a chief revenue officer. The game is played at a higher level, right? And that's what really starts to be an expansive component.
So we just talked about four, the chief revenue
Yep.
officer, operating officer, financial officer, and then the executive officer, the CEO.
Yep.
Um, what delineates these folks over managers? I've got an idea and I'm going to share it with you, but I want to hear your thoughts first. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
what are some of
So
the delineating characteristics that they have versus maybe even you put somebody in that position, but they can't do the job right because they're missing what characteristics? I'm trying to define and distill the characteristics.
yeah. So there's a really important distinction between management and leadership, right? So usually that manager leader is held by the same person, but they're two very distinct marching orders. Managers are responsible for the functional execution of the role, the tactical, practical, check-offable things getting done on a daily basis. That's what managers do. And if that's their title, that's going to be their primary focus, the
Okay.
getting the stuff done, right? Where leaders are responsible for more the strategic side and also responsible for inspiring people to follow them, right? Creating that cultural desire inside of a team to be willing to follow their lead, right? To be able to go after them. So if you look at it in a different way, leadership is giving the destination, management is mapping the course. And when you hire in somebody at a C-suite level, right, an executive level, fancy terms, they need to be able to encompass both skill sets. Where if you're just hiring a manager, they usually are not expected, or they often lack more of those high level skills of leadership.
Okay, so just repeating what you said, leadership, mapping the course.
Giving the destination. The destination is given by the leader.
I wrote this
And
down directly from you. You used the phrase mapping the course.
yeah, that's for the manager.
That's
It's
for
going
the
to map it,
manager. Okay.
right? And the leader is going to give the destination. This is where we're headed. This is where we're going. And then management is all about, okay, turn left at the first stop sign, turn right at the, 3/4 of a mile. Mapping the course.
Okay. So in the early stages of putting this kind of team in place,
Mhm.
it seems likely that you would first hire managers who were competent executors of the vision of the CEO slash typically owner, right?
Yes.
Not always the owner, but in most cases, it's going to be the owner. Does that sound right to you?
That's what a lot of companies do.
Well, I
But
said as you're starting, like, so
yeah,
first of all, it's, hey, I own the company and
yep,
I need crews to install stuff and I need people to sell stuff. And I'm going
yep.
to train the sales team and I'm going to oversee the crews. And at some point, you bring in somebody who can oversee the crews for you and who can manage the sales teams for you. And then maybe you've
Mhm.
got a bookkeeper over here that's doing the bookkeeping. And at
Yes.
this level, I don't know, maybe a couple $1 million in sales for a remodeling company.
Yep. Yeah.
There's not a lot of executiving happening. There's a
Yeah.
lot
It's
of
very
managing
tactical.
happening.
Yeah. This is very tactical. That's right.
Now, it seems like there could be a very big disconnect. So, like in real life, you don't just come in and go, oh, now we're $8 million. Now we have to
Yeah.
install an executive team. You grow it organically over time, right? So you
Yep.
have these managers in place that are tacticians who are functional executors of their role, to use your
Yes.
words, right?
Yes. Yep.
And here's where I see potentially a huge problem is
Sure.
that this person who is very functionally good at executing is not the right person to be that leader. But the temptation, I guess is the right word, is to just to promote that person as you
Yes.
grow.
Super. Yes. It's such a big temptation, in fact, that it has a formal name in leadership philosophy called the Peter Principle. It means that
Okay.
you've hired someone beyond their capability. And it's so often we, as humans, as people inside of a workforce, think that the only way for us to progress in our career is to get promoted. But oftentimes, if you're outrageously good at your current role, the personality traits, the skills, the strengths that you have that you bring to that role are not at all what's going to be used in the next role, right? In the next higher role. So think about it from a sales consultant. I'm sure you've watched this happen thousands of times in real life, where someone has a really great sales consultant who is out there and they're able to close deals. Customers love them. They're actually decently okay at their paperwork, which is, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And the owner says, all right, I'm going to make you in charge of sales now. And when they're now overseeing other people, they just are struggling and it's really hard for them. And the owner can't understand what went wrong. What goes wrong there is that what a sales manager needs to be good at is only partially overlapping with what a sales consultant needs to be good at or sales rep needs to be good at. Right.
I
So,
think most people would hear what you said right now and agree with you
mhm.
because everybody, like salespeople, have a reputation that has been deservedly earned. It's like
They've earned it.
I'm outgoing. I'm a people person.
Yep.
I hate doing paperwork. Because you even made
Yep.
fun of the paperwork thing a minute
Yeah.
ago, and it's pretty easy to look at that and go, okay, maybe you're not the best person to lead this sales team. And probably the salesperson even is like, yeah, maybe I'm not the best person, even though I know that it does happen and it is a problem. But
Sure.
on the other side of the business, I think it's probably less obvious that the
Yeah.
person who is managing your production, let's say, the other
Yep.
probably major element for a remodeling company,
Sure.
may not be the right person to, on the executive level as you've defined it, to run that part of
Oversee
the
all of
company.
operations. It's actually really important when you're looking at these roles to identify, we call them an avatar, right? What are the skills are one thing, the skills and experience are one thing, but what are the personality traits and characteristics of a person that would make them extremely good in executing this function, right? So this is a really big piece about organizational structure that most small business owners do not think through. And so they hire the wrong profile. It's that every role inside of your business has a very specific function, right? And you need to be able to answer the question, what does winning look like in this role? For every single role, what does winning look like? What is the core thing that you need this role to be able to deliver inside of your business? Once you've identified the function of the role, then you say, okay, what type of person is going to be naturally gravitating towards this function, right? Because sometimes a resume tells you what somebody did, doesn't necessarily tell you that they did it well, right? Or that they brought a culture to the business when they were doing it. Because you can become pretty decently good at doing something that you never had, good foundations for just by force of will, right? So when you're thinking of, is your production manager a good person to elevate to your COO? That transition, production manager, COO, is far more common than over on the sales side.
Because those skill sets and personalities tend to overlap
Are
better.
more aligned. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you say is it's more likely that you can actually promote that person from within who's
Homegrown.
been with you for 4 years as you've
Yes.
labored from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 5 million.
Yes.
Now they're very possibly, not likely necessarily, but
Yep.
possibly a good fit, more so than on the sales side.
Yeah, more so than on sales side.
Those
I
sales people are
yep.
weirdos. I say
I
that
love
lovingly in a good way.
I started in sales, so I'm here to say amen to that. We march to the beat of our own drum. I actually had a corporate career, a long time ago. And one of the things that shocked me when I went from leading a sales team to leading a more administratively focused team is with sales, all you do is dangle money and they go get it, right? They're here for it. They will move heaven and earth to go grab that dollar or that $10,000 or whatever it
Yeah,
is that it
yeah.
is. I tried that with an admin team and nobody moved an inch. Like there was no heaven and earth at all. Like there was just sitting on the seat. So motivations are highly different when you're leading different teams, which is why you need different profiles of managers, different profiles of leaders to be able to maximize the potential of each one of those departments.
Okay. So I'm gonna springboard on something you said just a minute ago and get your opinion on this, because this is an
Yeah,
observation that I've had watching remodeling and home services companies that have scaled, and in many cases have scaled into the $100 million plus.
sure.
And this is a problem that I've seen in some of those types of cases. You said that you used to be a corporate something.
Yep. Executive.
Um,
Yeah.
a corporate
Corporate
executive.
executive.
I have noticed within the remodeling and home services industries that oftentimes when companies go recruit out of the quote unquote executive management world of business, that they
Sure.
bring people in who do not have the mentality to function well in a home services or remodeling company. In other words, I'll give you one specific example. There are many others. One specific example is a company was wanting to sell to private equity. This was 7 or 8 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
they had a marketing director who was extraordinarily competent at her job. Had been with them since they were doing a couple $1 million, and now they're doing, you know, I don't know, 100+ million. And they
Yep.
thought, oh, if we're going to sell this company, we need to have a more impressive um, roster, executive
Sure.
leadership roster. Because this gal, who was the $100 million plus marketing director, had started out
Yep.
as a graphic designer
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
8 years before and had grown through those positions. So they went out and they recruited somebody who had significant marketing director experience in a Fortune 500 setting.
Yes.
And when this new person came in and she replaced the old person, it was an abject failure and a complete disaster because everything was very stuffed shirt, shall we say, bureaucratic,
Yep.
and it was awful. And they ended up actually firing the Fortune 500 person and begging back the other person after they sold the company. And the new
Oh, that's
ownership of the company came in and went, "This person's terrible.
right.
She
Why did
sucks."
you do that to us?
And so they had to go beg her back because they had forced her out and they had to,
Sure.
really make up. So do you see this happening? Like, where do you find these people? Because a lot of these corporate leadership type people, in my
Yep.
limited, admittedly, experience, they are not that good at getting crap done. They're good at
Yeah.
like rearranging the Titanic deck chairs.
Right, right. So here's what I will say at that. So I want to go back to an earlier part of our
No
conversation.
comment on you coming from that background, by the way. Keep going.
Oh,
Sorry.
oh, I climbed the corporate ladder, so I have no, I wasn't a sub shirt. I was the youngest member of the executive leadership team, and I climbed the corporate ladder in record speed. So I wasn't like a long-term legacy, been there for 15 years, only know that, I'm a gritty person. So that's
Okay, so grit. So talk about that.
no offense taken. What was that?
Yeah, so I think that's the right word. There's a grit level that
Grit.
that is a 42 or 86 or 21 million dollar remodeling or home service company needs
Yes.
that I don't perceive exists in a lot of these highfalutin
Yeah. Yeah.
corporate executives that you might
So
recruit.
I want to go back to an earlier part of our conversation because I think it's going to shine some light and then we'll make sure that this gets
Okay.
answered. So you said in the, as a business is growing and you bring in a manager and then you want to bring in the executive leadership team. We actually, when a business is growing, and let's say let's stay on the sales side. You have 5 sales reps and you as the owner have been managing those sales reps. We actually advise that you hire above what you need, that you actually bring in a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, who has much higher business acumen, much higher capacity, much higher experience level than a typical manager. Because what will happen is it expands the capacity of their leadership, expands the capacity of the team. And as the team grows and you need managers, then they hire in the manager. What I am gonna
You know
say
what? But
about
I commented on that earlier,
yeah,
and the way I
yeah,
commented on that is I said, yeah, I understand that it's good to just bring these people in, but
yep,
that's not reality in most cases. In most cases, it's like, hey, I'm the owner and I've got 4 salespeople. I need somebody to just manage these salespeople and train them.
mhm,
Okay, you're now the sales manager. I'll go outside of the company. I'll hire somebody.
yeah.
So it's like almost a dead certainty that there's actually going to be a sales manager before you ever get to the point with where you bring that person in,
Well,
the
so
leader.
this is exactly what I'm saying is that it's a dead certainty that actually caps out. It makes you go slower. If you want to grow faster,
So what does that look
don't
like in real life on the ground? Okay, so I
in
go
real
and I
life on
bring
the
a chief.
ground.
I bring in a chief revenue officer,
Yep.
and this person is, let's call it, overqualified to be the sales manager.
Yeah.
So, but I can't afford a chief revenue officer and a sales manager.
Right. Right.
So now
You
this
have
person
to,
is the sales manager and the chief revenue officer, which ostensibly puts them over marketing too.
yeah, eventually they grow into it, right?
Okay,
You
so
don't
how does that look and work?
Yeah, you don't usually give it to them all at once. So it looks really that you have to be hyper realistic during your hiring process with the ad that you place, with the job expectations, and with the way that you interview for that role. So, yes, you're going to be punching a little bit above your weight, which for the owner, I am going to tell you is uncomfortable.
But isn't it
Great
uncomfortable for
news.
the hire also because they're looking at it going, "Hey, I'm a freaking chief revenue officer, man, and you want me to manage these 4 clown salespeople as part of my job?"
Yeah, so you have to take someone who is maybe someone who's been a sales manager that has a potential to step into this CRO role, or someone who it's shows up in all sorts of different ways in the real world,
Okay,
who ends up applying for that role. Here's what it does is if you tell your CRO, yes, your first job is going to be manage the 4 clowns. and get our systems, make sure that our selling system is working. But the great news is we are going from 4 million to 40 million, and you're going to be the one who drives the sales team growth and development. A good CRO who is ambitious, who is money driven, which you absolutely want, who can see the potential next phase, will say, you
Okay.
know what? I'm
So what
willing to
about
roll up
this?
my sleeves and do the work.
So maybe it looks like this, and maybe not. You're the expert.
Sure.
I'm just trying to learn this right now for
Yeah,
myself,
no, no,
right?
I love it. It's good.
So maybe it looks more like this in real life. You go out and hire a sales manager who, instead of interviewing three sales manager and hiring the best one, you hire 11 sales manager and you look for the real unicorn who you perceive has the ability to be that chief revenue officer, even though at the moment, realistically, they're the sales manager.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you certainly could hire someone at a sales manager level and just be looking with that eye to what's next. But we have a pretty strict philosophy about you need to hire for the role that you have today, right? Because if you hire someone for the role that they're going to have tomorrow, they're going to have a really hard time settling, like you said, settling for that role that they have today.
Okay, well,
So
this
it's,
is where I can't get past this. Okay,
yeah, go.
I can't get past that. You're going to go hire the person that is not only qualified, but also perceives that they are that executive leadership role. And when you bring them in, the job is much smaller than it will be when they're 40 million. So you're asking them at $4 million to do what they're qualified to do for a $40 million company. It seems like it would be hard to find a person that would want to take that quote unquote demotion, because it feels like a demotion to
Yeah.
me.
Well, it's often people who are on the upward trajectory in their career. It's not usually someone who's been a CRO over at a $100 million company who comes
Yeah.
into a $4 million company. That is a unicorn. If you have that, that's because you're probably promising them equity or something else that they see a really significant upside to taking a step back in their
Okay, so
career.
we're actually saying the same thing. I'm just
It's
using some different words. So we're
that's
saying we've got to find the person who is willing to be the quote unquote sales manager now, but
yes,
has the skill set based on whatever. And I want you to
yes.
tell me about how you find these people in a minute, but we perceive has the ability to be the CRO.
Yes. So
Okay.
many of the pieces inside of the CRO role, when you're dealing with small company growing into bigger company, right, is really identifying first, they don't usually handle marketing right away, right? They're just overseeing sales usually to start, right? Because sales is one of those critical success factors. If you do not have a selling system, if you do not have a refined way of recruiting, hiring, onboarding, retaining, and training your sales force, that is a rate limiting factor of your growth.
Okay.
So that is where that person who has that skill level, they have to be able to see things from a little bit broader of a perspective. They don't necessarily need to be, Fortune 500. You're not going to get a Fortune 500 person at a $4 million business. You're not. And like you said before, if you did, it's going to
We
be a
probably
bad,
don't want that person.
you're not going to want that person, right? It's going to be a bad culture match. They're going to hate their job. So you need someone who has bigger capacity so they can see how to systematize your sales process. Because let's be truthful, most $4 million business owners do not have a systematic way of selling, right? They have maybe, but usually they don't. So it being able to create that rinsable, repeatable, trainable, predictable process to codify it, to train it, to teach it, to hire to it, that's what you really need for that make to leap the gap between 4 to 15.
Okay, so now let's say that we're going through this process. I've got my chief revenue officer, my operating officer, my financial officer, and probably the financial officer is probably the third out of those three.
Yeah, they're usually fractional for a long time.
Okay,
They're
great.
they're not a full-time role. Mhm.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, so I've got this executive leadership team, and I'm assuming that it's the CEO's job to lead and inspire and manage those folks.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Absolutely right.
so this is where I want you to put on your salesperson hat.
Yep.
because this is what your company does. And look, some people might be listening to this right now and go, oh, he's going to have her do a sales pitch. Yes, I am, because I want to know what it is that you do to help people to facilitate this within a company. What, like, do you have training for how to hire a chief revenue officer, how to find them, how to get them in sync with your culture, how to get them all of the things that they need to be doing? How do you what I'm hoping the answer is yes, we do that, because if not, then we just had a nice chat, but okay, how are you actually supposed to do this? Because
But
you're in
now
one of these
nobody
kinds
can
of
hire you.
businesses where people could listen to you talk all day long.
Sure.
Literally, you could teach a month-long course, but at some point, I just need you to come freaking help me do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer to your question is yes, and so much more. So the way that we do what we do is by applying our proprietary framework, which we call progressive intelligence. We call it ProQ for short, because you've got IQ to measure intelligence, EQ to measure emotional intelligence, and now you've got ProQ to measure your business intelligence. And we do an assessment, a very deep dive into your business, look at all the things. We look at sales and marketing, operations, finance, culture. We look at those organizational structures that we just spent so much time chatting through. And then we look at your leadership capacity. How much can you, as the owner of the leader, how much can you lead, right? And the answer for some is they're really good leaders. And the answer for others is they're not really excellent leaders, right? So they need to grow in order to help lead their business forward. So we take a look at that. We take a look at the business you have today, where you're operating today, what potential there is in your market, what competitors you have, and then we take a look at where you aspire to grow, right? Are you trying to go from a $2 million company to a $7 million company? Well, we're probably going to have you gear up for 10 at least, right? We look at where you want to grow, and then we backwards engineer all of the steps to deliver you a strategic plan that you agree to. This is the most critical step of the process. Once we've done our magic behind the scenes, you have to agree that this is the plan we want to rock, right? We want to rock this plan, because from there, now that we have the plan in place and we know what it's like, we don't make the business owner figure all of this out, because it's a lot and it's hard and it's complicated and you're moving a lot of different pieces all at once. What we do is we break down everything that needs to be done into bite-sized, week-by-week tasks that the business owner needs to execute. And we make sure that it's reasonable, and we make sure that they are fully equipped with everything they need to do it. So, for example, let's talk about hiring a CRO. We make sure that we have enough sales revenue to support that role. We make sure that we have all the pieces and parts. There's so many little pieces that go into it, but you're not just gonna whip up any old job description, right? We're gonna give you some templates which you customize. We're gonna have you in your own company define what are your 5 absolute non-negotiable must-haves out of this role, so that you can lead to those expectations. And we're going to show you how do you write the job ad, where do you post that job ad, and then we actually will either support you in the hiring process by helping you do some of the interviewing, depends if you're which type of service delivery you want, or we teach you how to run those interviews, because that can be tough, right? And if it's something you've never done before, it's going to be a challenge for you. So we don't just teach from an ivory tower standpoint. My business partner and I have been doing this for decades. We've helped thousands of companies through this process. This is not something that we're new and raw at. This is just something that we've combined our forces to do together now. And that's where we're making our big entrance onto the scene, so to say. But the process of it is that we teach and we believe in and we support incremental steps towards exponential growth. And it's an alignment of those 4 pillars that I rattled off, of your organizational structures, of your leadership capacity, that is built progressively, 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 progressively with our support every single step of the way. Exactly what we do.
Okay, so it sounds like it starts with the ProQ, I don't know what you call it, the
Deep
analysis,
dive. Yeah, we do a ProQ deep dive. It's a 2-day process with tons of data that we ask in advance. That's kind of our non-negotiable first step of engaging with a client. And then we work with them for a year to implement it inside of their business.
So is there a way to do the deep dive for 2 days as an assessment for how good of a fit a company is for you? Or is the deep dive just the first step out of a plan that you've already committed to? In other words,
Yes.
how do
Yeah.
people find out if it's a good fit to do business with you?
Yeah, so I mean, you got to talk to our team, right? That's the best way to do it. You can have a discovery call with our team, talk about your business, look at where you are. There are some very predictable markers that we can identify to say, oh, yep, tick, 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 this is gonna be great for you, or not tick, 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 this isn't gonna be great for you. Like you're not quite ready, right? So some people think that they want to grow, but the appetite for change needs to be present because the person who is going to grow the absolute most, which I can guarantee, is the leader of the business, the owner of the business. And if they don't want to change, if they're very change averse, then they're going to really struggle to adapt to the shifting environment of a growing business.
So how can somebody engage you for the discovery call?
Yeah, they can
Because
go to,
and
yep,
let me just back up a little bit because this is this isn't like something that people have bought 4 times before and now
right,
it's not like a vehicle. It's like, oh, I need a new car. Well, do I
yeah,
want a Toyota or a Lexus or whatever?
sure,
This is like, oh, I've never done this before, so I don't even really understand fully what I'm getting into. Like, let's assume somebody heard this podcast and go, wow,
yep,
this sounds really interesting. I do want to scale my business. I like this framework you're talking about. But number one, I don't even know how much it costs. But before even how much does it cost, I don't even really know what the process is. I don't even know if
sure,
I'm a good fit.
sure.
If somebody wants to do a discovery call with you, how long does it take? Do you charge money for it? How does
No,
that work?
yeah, it's a free service. So you can go on our website, legacyleadershipinstitute.com, and there's a book a call button. Just click the button, get access to the calendar, and we will spend some time with you. I'm going to give you just some very simple, am I a good fit questions that you can ask yourself before you even go there. Is your business over $1 million in annual revenue? That is a line for us that we don't usually dip under because there's a lot of companies that are good taking seeds to saplings. We
I
take
got it.
saplings
If
into those.
somebody has a problem with that, I don't want to hear your complaint. If you're
Easy.
not $1 million, don't do this. Okay,
Yeah,
keep going.
that's right. Don't do this. So you're going to spend a lot of money, not quite ready yet. The other thing is what I said before, willingness of the owner to grow, right? Are you willing to take on change and to be led, right? There's a lot of high A's, type A people who just want to do their own thing. That's okay. But we're going to give you actually stuff to do that you're going to be held accountable for doing because you have to if you want to grow. So that's a precursor. And we'd like for you to have some semblance of a team, right? You talked about a lot of remodelers, contractors who can, shoot up to $4 million just by sheer force of the will. So we would like you to have some of your teams already built out. If you don't have any team built out well, then that's going to be a
Yeah,
challenge too.
and let me make this comment to my listeners.
Sure.
One of the things that we do here at Level 10 is we help you grow via marketing, okay,
Yeah.
more leads. And I think there's a subcategory of people that say, you know what, right now my constraint in my business for growing is we don't have enough leads. So if we had more leads, we would grow, which is true. But I want to just point out what is obvious, I hope, at this point of this conversation. It's like, yeah, if I gave you 10 times more leads, and let's say that you even had the salespeople that you could train and get to close those leads, you're now going to have a 10 times bigger business.
Yes.
And all of your problems that are small in your business right now are going to be 10 times bigger, but probably even
Yes.
more exponentially. Like, this is crap that is non negotiable. You've got to do this. Otherwise, I've seen it many times. I recall very well in my early days of working in this industry, one of my clients, $8 million, and that's a level where
Yeah,
you got to have your crap together.
you do. You
And
do.
they did not have their crap together, and that business just fell apart. They went out
Yeah.
of business.
Yeah, you can tank your business. So the way that I look at this is kind of twofold. If you have a 10-gallon tank and you give that person 20 gallons of gas and you just keep putting it in and putting it in and putting it in, that gas is just going to spill all over and become a fire hazard. Right. So what we do is we don't take a 10-gallon tank and give you 20 gallons of gas. We say, all right, you want to be ready for a 50-gallon tank? Let's go. And we help you create a 50-gallon tank. So
Yeah.
we
And if
don't
you've
just
only got
help
10
you.
gallons in your 50-gallon tank at first, great. At
That's
least you have a
right.
tank that can be filled now.
That's exactly right. And people say, oh, I can't afford it. It's never going to work for me. It's actually not the case because the growth that you gain start will cover it, right? So we actually have a really bold guarantee, which is outrageous. Most business consulting or business coaching firms do not offer a guarantee. So our guarantee is real growth or we work for free, which means if you share your financial data with us, if you show us about your business,
Mhm.
we will craft for you a growth guarantee, top line percentage growth, bottom line profit percentage growth. And if we don't hit those numbers for you with you in 12 months, we will continue to work with you without billing you a penny until we hit them.
All right. So you got some motivation not only to do your job, but to do it in a timely fashion.
That's right. Get it. We have to have our crap together as well, right? Like if we're leading you poorly, or because some of it is sometimes we have to convince the owner to take a step that they're uncomfortable taking. Well, that's part of our journey is to be exceptionally good at showing you the reasons why and at putting the guardrails on so that you feel safe taking these big, bold steps.
Okay. So legacyleadershipinstitute.com. I'm on your website right now. I see a
Yep.
big green button that says I'm ready for consistent growth. That's the one that you would hit.
Take it.
Okay.
Yep.
When you click on that, it says book your business breakthrough session
There you
and
go.
reserve it now. So that's the move, right?
That's it. That's it. That's how you get there.
Okay. Well, I'll put that in the show notes in
Awesome.
case people listening can't remember. Look, if you can't remember this, you don't deserve to grow. Okay.
That's harsh. That's hard. Maybe they're driving and there's traffic. Come on, let's be generous.
No, 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 I'm not giving him that grace. LegacyLeadershipInstitute.com. I'm ready for consistent growth, and then book your breakthrough session. I hope that you do that. And please let me know. I'm talking to the listeners now, not to you, Madeleine. If you do this, I would love to get your feedback because I'm very excited about this. I'm a huge believer in it. I'm in a process right now at Level 10 Contractor where we're very heavily focused on scaling our business so that we can provide better service as we get bigger and take on more clients. So I'm interested in this. I want to see how it goes for you guys. So please let me know. Madeleine, I'm going to give you the last word. Anything you want my audience to hear that we haven't talked about so far?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to, if you're listening and you have a multi-million-dollar business, I just want you to take the victory lap for yourself because it's hard to do, right? And you are in rare air, even though in our home improvement, home services, contracting space, it feels common. You are not common, right? And it's really important to remember that because as you grow your business, you're going to hire a lot of people who are not quite like you. So you really have to own the fact that you are exceptional and take the steps to really maximize your exceptionality because it's available to you.
Okay. That's it. Madeleine, thanks so much for having me on or for being a guest on my podcast.
Yeah,
And look forward to talking to you in the future and continue this relationship. Maybe we'll have you on in 2025 to give us some other elements. Maybe we'll dig a little deeper into the four pillars.
awesome. I'll be happy to do it.
All right. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you later.